Hey, what's going on, guys? So I spent like the last 4 hours making this episode of Quality Control, and then Sony Vegas crashed on me before I made a save like I thought I did. So I have to re-record everything, so here we fucking go again, I guess. So I'm gonna do this episode on a gun that isn't widely used at all, and is completely overlooked in my opinion, and it was overlooked by me for the longest time. But it's the PP2000. So I rented the gun and played for a few hours, and I was able to gather my opinions on the gun and figure out the best way to play with the gun. So I'm going to throw some gameplay on for you guys, and hopefully you guys enjoy, and hopefully Sony Vegas doesn't fucking crash on me again. So for a quick overview of the PP2000 in case you aren't aware, the gun by default holds only 20 bullets, but that goes up to 30 with the extended mags. It has an extremely simple vertical recoil pattern that is easy to control, and it has a medium fire rate. I'd put it at a little bit less than the P90. In most FPS games, there's usually a couple guns in the game that are pretty just cheesy to use, and they're just to use for fun. Think about Modern Warfare 2, you could have akimbo PP2000s, akimbo Vectors, or the F2000. It's just really a gun in a game that is used really just for the cheesy element of it, the fact that it's so bad that nobody really uses it. And the PP2000 is one of those guns that I really just threw into that role of cheesy weapons that are so bad that it's comical if you use it. But after equipping it, I quickly learned that that's actually not the case with this gun. The PP2000 actually does have a pretty decent spot in this game of usability, and while the PP2000's long range capabilities are lacking, I do feel that the gun excels incredibly in close range situations, which is why I would still fit the PP2000 into the role of a cheesy gun that is there for you to have fun with and isn't exactly something that's going to destroy your opponent every time reliably. The PP2000 is a gun that does feel extremely rewarding when you do get the kills with it, and it feels like you completely outplay the other person. And I also feel like going on streaks with the gun just felt amazing, and it also felt like I was really outgunning people with skill-based mechanics rather than just going into most gunfights, knowing that I would win based on my weapon choice. Each gunfight that I got into while using the PP2000 felt like something new, and most of my gunfights came down to who had the better movement or who ran the better route. I felt that I had to play a bit more tactically when I was using this weapon just because of the low ammo count by default without the extended magazine. Every bullet counted, and every shot that I missed just meant that my chances of surviving that gunfight lowered just because of how fast your magazine empties. You can see in the gameplay that most of my deaths are the result of me missing too many shots and not playing as smart as I should have, and also running routes that didn't play to the weapon's strengths. With the PP2000, you need to be aware of your positioning as well as the enemy's positioning. Map awareness is key when you're using a weapon with such a small magazine, as you do not want to run around aimlessly with this gun, as it will only result in you dying. So like I said earlier, the PP2000 is a gun that I was actually used to using because it was in Modern Warfare 2 as a secondary with the same ammo count, and it filled the same role there as it does here. It's a gun that's actually usable as a primary when playing with its advantages in mind. I really just replicated that MW2 playstyle with the weapon's advantages in mind, and it worked out for me incredibly well. You really have to stay in close quarters range with this weapon. The medium and long range capabilities of the PP2000 are almost non-existent and will only result in you getting absolutely destroyed if you do go against anyone using a weapon that's in the meta. In the last episode I mentioned that pushing spawns with the Vector would be beneficial, and I do feel the same way about the PP2000. But I want to give a little bit of a variation with the playstyle, as most gunfights with the PP2000 will end with you having to reload, which makes spawn killing a little bit more tough with this gun, and you have to be a little bit more smart with where and when you reload. If you notice in the gameplay, I do push the spawns and play based off the enemy not knowing where I am, and I'm being careful with not staying in the same exact location for too long. The strengths of the PP2000 really are based on positioning and map knowledge, and without having good positioning and knowledge of where people are, the weapon will be extremely difficult to use successfully. Using lethal and tactical grenades to check buildings and corners for you will help in scenarios when you're pushing up into the enemy spawn or further into the objective and aren't entirely sure where the other team is. Using your lethals and tacticals in a smart way will allow you to quickly check a building and will allow you to become more aware of what routes are clear and where your next move should be. If you flash a corner and get a hit marker, you'll know that someone is behind that corner, so you can use that information to either push around the corner or loop around and kill them while they're trying to figure out where you are. There's countless variations to gunfights and the best way to handle them, and knowing what to do comes with more time in game, and hopefully you guys are able to learn a little bit about positioning from the gameplay. So I said in the last video of Quality Control on the Vector that that was a weapon that will benefit players with strong aim, but it's more of a detriment to players who aren't able to quickly snap and track their targets effectively. The statement's even more true if you run the PP2000 without the extended magazine. Going into my choice of attachments, I went with the red dot and extended mags as soon as I unlocked it. The gun's far more challenging to use when you're not running the extended magazine, and as soon as I put it on, the gun became 10 times more useful. When I first equipped the PP2000, my only real gripe with the weapon was a low bullet count, and of course with the extended mag adding 10 more bullets making the total magazine size 30, it made it on par with every other SMG for the most part. In my opinion, the extended mags is definitely a requirement when running this gun, but attachments are always up to you guys, and if you do like the Ironsight on the PP2000, feel free to swap out the red dot for a different barrel or even a silencer. So that's my thoughts on the PP2000 and what I feel is the best way to play with it. To summarize, stick to the close range gunfights, plan your routes, and hit your shots. Now comparing the PP2000 to the other weapons in the SMG class, I don't think I would recommend it if you're looking for a well-rounded SMG. I would recommend something much easier to use, easier to handle with more ammo to spare. But if you are looking for something new and something that is fun to use, and something that is a breath of fresh air from the AR-57 hipfire meta, I would suggest using the PP2000 and giving it a try. If you do end up trying the PP2000, make sure that you do stay in close range with your enemies and try to avoid medium to long lines of sight. Just try to be aware of your positioning and work on your map awareness, and the PP2000 will work out. So I was actually considering making a video covering my map awareness and sharing tips on how to know where the enemy will spawn and using your teammate's location as a UAV. So if you guys are interested in me making a video covering that, just let me know and I'll get to it. But that's about it for this episode of Quality Control. Next week I'm going to cover the MP5, but be sure to comment if you do have another weapon that you want me to cover after that. Thanks for watching. Peace out.